Hi, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new here. Today I'm going to be playing with the Little Smiles release from Spellbinders. This was one of those collections that when I saw it, I knew I was going to be in heaven for the scene building capabilities with this one. I am going to assemble my video in the order that I made the cards. That just kind of seemed the most, I don't know, organized method to do this. I didn't put them in order of how I had planned them out, but I'll kind of explain that as I go. When I saw the collection, the Go-Kart Go dies, I'm sure they titled them intentionally, but they reminded me of the Go Dogs Go book from Dr. Seuss as a kid, and then I had it for my kids. So that was the inspiration for my first card. And what I did here was I pulled out about 6 or 7 colors in like blue, aqua, green, yellow, oranges that I wanted to kind of just keep within for all 4 cards. Anything that I only have a single sheet of because I bought the assorted cardstock, I'm not going to use that as a base because I'm not going to have enough cardstock. So I did kind of plan out, how much paper I had. So anything that I had purchased a full, separate set of paper for, I have card bases in those colors. So what I ended up doing was I took both the Go-Kart Go die cut set and the Swinging in the Stars die cut set, and I just die cut for a while. Put on some TV, die cut a bunch of stuff, pretty much took each of those colors and ran them through with everything I could. Now, this card that I'm assembling, don't do this. Don't do what I'm doing. It took me until probably card 2 or 3 to realize that those orange circular pieces, those are not the headlights for the car. Those are the interior ear pieces for the monkey. Sometimes when I'm playing with a new die set, I can't figure out what is what or what is intended to go where. There is actually a die in this set that I still have yet to figure out what it's for. Feels a little bit like a mystery, but a fun mystery. I later realized when I went to cut the little crown for the head of one of my animals that the headlights were on that die. But if you do what I do, just know that the interior of the monkey's ears will work for headlights. It's just not the intended thing. I left that in there because I make mistakes. I like to leave them in. It's fine. My first card, like I said, I am using white cardstock, and I'm going to take a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch offcut before I make my card base. So I've got my card base, I have another piece to do my embossing, and then this is the little last section of that full sheet of paper. I'm going to use the Better Press plate, which is the sentiments that coordinate with this, and I've got some dark gray ink here. I use a Big Shot. It works pretty well for me. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut those as well. I also grabbed some scrap white cardstock and die cut some additional layers to stack. This is that Wishing Stars 3D embossing folder. I did forget to mist my paper with just a little bit of water, so one of my stars did crack and kind of popped a hole, but I wasn't really concerned because I knew that I was going to be covering it up with all of the cute little go-kart. By keeping my clips in order, I intended to be able to kind of walk you guys through a lot of the sort of mistakes or mishaps that I was creating for myself along the way. I originally wanted pretty close to my outcome for this first card. I wanted to have sort of wall-to-wall go-karts with the animals driving, lots of pops of color, lots of stars. I actually ended up ripping up the whole panel, having to cut another one, emboss it, fix a couple of my cars. For some reason, I wasn't paying attention to like where I was gluing things. And so just wanted to touch on, even though it's, you know, it's an edited video that you're watching somebody make, there are a lot of things on the back end that kind of get cut out. I cut those clips out of my video just because I didn't want it to be 30 minutes long, and I didn't want anybody to watch me peel up all these cars and sort of have like a moment. But once I got everything like readjusted, it did go quicker. I would say that this first card took me the longest, mostly just because it involved a lot of the die cut prep for the entire, you know, set of 4 cards. I just decided to do the majority of the die cutting at the front so that I didn't have to stop and go cut a piece every time I needed a different color. So I picked out a phrase that I felt like went with the cars, and just like with scrapbooking, I take way too long to sort of figure out an arrangement. I wanted to have my colors kind of separated. It wasn't until I was almost done with the card that I realized I had stuck the 2 blue cars pretty close together, but I think it was just me fiddling way too much and trying to make sure that I kept space for my sentiment. In the end, I love this card. I think that this one was so fun. I think this one is actually on the product page for the die cuts over at Spellbinders. So that's kind of fun to see. And I tried to separate like my animals so it wasn't just like a whole gang of bunnies, but clearly I have a whole gang of bunnies there. I also, for card 1, kept the dies just to go cart go. I had in my mind that I wanted to do 1 card with Go Kart Go, 1 card with Swinging in the Stars or Among the Stars, and then 2 cards where I mix and match everything together, because that's what I like to do. So typically the card that I stay within the single die cut set is how I sort of learn the dies, get to know them, figure out what pieces go where. This right here is not something that I recommend. I got smarter as I went. I kept all of those little nose and eyes pieces when I was cutting the animals out. And instead of recutting them with a darker cardstock, I just took a black Copic marker, colored them in on some double-sided tape, and then I'm going to attempt to inlay them. This was a rough process because I could no longer figure out what was an eyeball and what was a nose. Later in the video, you'll see I get a little bit smarter. We're going to move on to card number 2. This one I'm doing, I believe this is the Breeze cardstock. This is such a pretty color blue. I cut a smaller panel out of a rectangle die, popped that up, and then like I said earlier, I've got a lot of my stuff already die cut. So assembly for like this one and the next one was super quick. I picked a sentiment that I felt like matched the little scene that I had in my mind. This one, I am mixing the 2 die cuts together. I couldn't be contained. I was like, nope, I want to play with the clouds. I want to start mixing some things up. Apparently my clip got a little sluggish. We're gonna ignore that. Basically, I just kind of wanted to have like a little mini scene of this cute little elephant sort of floating in the clouds, just kind of hanging out. I'm gonna put him and the hippo, which are in that Swinging Among the Stars die cut set. I love that between the 2 sets, you've got 4 different animals. Originally, I thought I was going to do like a grid style, but what I saw in my mind, I couldn't make work on the front of an A2 size card. So I scrapped that and like just kind of doodled a little sketch so that the next time I play with this, I can kind of revisit that concept. But for today, I was really focused on having fun and like mixing things together and making some scenes. These little balloons are from the Go Kart Go set. There's a balloon that has his eyes are closed, this balloon where they're open, and then the little bear. The bear does have another die that cuts like the backing to his ears. Everybody's eyeballs on this one, including the balloons, I just cut strips of some cardstock and glued them behind there. I keep almost ridiculously small scraps from die cutting, and they come in handy for like this kind of a purpose. So once I've got like the overall area where my like larger pieces are going to go, I can kind of start filling in. My animals have their space. I can come in and start adding some balloons. I'm kind of keeping things somewhat centered, but only the elephant is going to get balloons. I just kind of liked them hanging out behind him. And then I did stars on the go-kart card. So for this one, I decided that I wanted to kind of bring in some of these little florals that were also from that die set. And do flowers make sense with animals and clouds? No. But I think that they bring some fun, like pops of color. I just like having these little icons like tucked in between things. Sometimes when you think that there's no room to add something to a scene, 100% there is. There's my little crown that I was talking about earlier. When I went to cut it and I realized that the other shapes attached to that die were the headlights to my cars, I had a couple words for myself. So next time I pull out the go-karts, I will use the correct piece, which by the time I get to the fourth card, I did need another car, so I did end up cutting out another car. So I've just got, you know, 3-4-ish kind of flowers hanging out here. Like I said, I like to squeeze these little details in where I can. I also don't take my scenes too literal. I like to bring in some fun little interesting bits and pieces. And for card 3, my base is the Teal Topaz. I love this color. This is such a good, this is such a good color. This one, I'm going back to that concept of just using the one die set. So this is the Swinging Among the Stars die set. And I picked one animal, so I'm going to go with the elephant. And most of this was, again, I cut all of this stuff out at the very beginning of the video. I am reusing similar design concepts. So like the smaller frame panel popped up, the tone-on-tone colors for those 2 layers. And again, I'm going to do another, what I would consider a simple scene. I'm going to keep it like left adjusted, and in my mind that kind of reads that this balloon is, you know, it's in movement, it's in flight, it's going from the left to the right, and we're catching it kind of mid-flight over on the left. That's my little scrap of gray cardstock that I cut so much from that. Don't throw those away. They work for eyeballs and all kinds of these little like openings on faces and stuff. So now that I have my balloon and I'm going to figure out my spacing, before I glue any of that down, I'm going to grab 4 of the clouds from that die set and go ahead and glue them in the background. So I'm going to use my balloon, kind of like dry fitting it for placement. I'm going to add this one with some foam adhesive, and then I can go in and start adding my elephant into the balloon. And then I can take this entire piece and figure out what needs to have foam behind it and what needs to have liquid glue behind it, so that overall it's kind of, you know, flat to the front of my card here. So now that I have kind of the overall scene going, I can bring in his arm, make sure that I've got a sentiment picked out. I'm going to go ahead and add the 2 blank layers to that and make sure I have spacing for this on my card as well. For my 4 cards, the sentiments that I picked were either more birthday geared or more, I don't want to say generic, but I did stay away from some of the sentiments that were obvious for like baby or welcoming a baby. There is a 3rd die set that is like the stork and the baby wrapped up in the bundle. I don't have that one. I also don't have any like upcoming baby type needs. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, cards that I'm making and I'm having in my stash to be able to pull out are more useful sentiments for my needs, but I think all 3 of these sets are really good. I think the sentiments all really mix and match well. For my 4th card, I'm going to go back to mixing everything together. This is one of the things that I love to do. I did remember to mist my cardstock, and I'm going to make a slimline card. My base is 6x8 folded in half, so basically I think it's a 3x8. I'm not 100% sure like what a true slimline size is. There's so many different variations. I just took a set of slimline rectangle dies that I have, and I picked a smaller one because I want to have like that similar feel to the 2 previous ones that I made with that rectangle that's smaller than the card base. So I took the rectangle and figured out my size for the slimline from that, if that makes sense. Now we're going to ignore the star on my balloon, but look at me using the right piece for my car. I had to make one more car. So this point, I can assemble a car super quick because I know where all the pieces are. I've gotten to know the die set. Look at me not trying to inlay tiny eyeballs. Instead, I'm putting strips behind it. So fast, so smart. It only took me 4 cards. So when I'm building a scene, a lot of times there will be like a jumping off point or an inspiration. There was a movie I watched as a kid. Every time we went to the rental place, I would rent the exact same movie every single time. Everybody I've ever asked about it, nobody's ever heard about it. Anyways, it involved a hot air balloon race, lots of cars and hot air balloons. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. So I want to have this cute scene where my monkey in the car and my bunny in the balloon are sort of racing. I needed some kind of road or grounding piece, so I dug through and found an older Spellbinders border set. I believe it was actually like a Christmas themed stitching set, but there was like a wavy border in there. So I just cut it on some more of the cardstock that I've been die cutting from. I only needed a small piece. I used the same rectangle die to cut it to make sure that the edges would line up, and I can start putting down the main elements of my scene before I start filling in with more color and more pieces. At this point, I have gotten rid of that star balloon because I remembered that I wanted to have more of like, kind of like, you know, the balloons that lifted the house and up. I kind of wanted something more like that, where I'm bringing in the balloons from the Go Kart Go. This is, you know, swapping out one large balloon for a bunch of small balloons just gives me another opportunity to bring in different colors, a little bit more interest. My scene's going to be just a little bit more dynamic, have, you know, more stuff going on. This is not a very large canvas. This is a little bit smaller than 3x8 because, again, this is like a matting rectangle. So you would think that you couldn't fit, you know, a very large scene on here. But again, I'm going to keep adding, I'm going to keep filling in, and overall, I think this one was probably my favorite. Anytime I can just have fun with dies and cardstock and just kind of make a scene and really just sit here and keep gluing things on, I love it. I did use the Go Kart Go set and made a little like birthday hat for my monkey, so I'm going to make sure that he gets a hat on him. My bunny is going to get tucked up into the hot air balloon, and then before I start layering anything else on here, I'm going to make sure that I place some of those clouds and kind of have some more interest in the background. I'm going to try to figure out where to place my bunny's arm. He needs an arm. He can't just be hanging out with no arm. Monkey's going to get the birthday hat, and then instead of the bunny getting the crown, one of the balloons is going to get the crown. I do like to have some of my elements go past the edge of my layering piece, not past the edge of my card. So I did just kind of double check that any of my clouds that were hanging over weren't going too far so that they weren't going to go over the edge of the actual card. I'm going to pop this panel up with some foam adhesive. I prefer really thin foam adhesive, so I use 1mm size foam adhesive. I like strips, small squares, big squares, and I try to keep them on hand. And then from here, I'm just going to dig through all of these leftover die cuts that I have from everything I die cut at the beginning. Does it make sense for my card to be sort of driving over florals? No. But it's just fun. We're just going for color, shape, size, and vibes when we're adding small little elements like this. So I'm going to find places to add some of these tiny stars, the tiny florals, and this just kind of helps take the scene from being more like basic and simple and just, again, more interest, more color, more fun. And a lot of times I'm just looking for, so like that area of balloons, there's no yellow. So I'm just looking for something that is yellow. So I'm going to grab this dark yellow star and kind of tuck it in. And do balloon clusters have things like this tucked in around them? No, but it's fun. I think it just makes it more interesting. I'm going to sprinkle in some of these teeny tiny ones. Some of them are going to go on top of the balloons. Some are going to get tucked so that they're kind of hidden half behind. I'm just kind of picking through, trying to look at shape and color. I had a lot of the florals still left over, so I'm trying to find places that I can tuck these in. I think they're so cute, kind of tucked in with the different little animals. I'm not 100% sure that the little circles that I'm using for the floral centers are intended to be floral centers. They were on the same die as, I think, the tires, so it's fine. I actually really like the pop of black inside the florals. It makes, you know, the car tires not feel like the only black element. So my cards are complete. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a little bit longer, different than a scrapbook layout, but I am loving playing with stuff like this, so I try to share with you guys. I will link everything down below, including the colors of the cardstocks that I used. These are the new ColorWheel cardstocks, and I am loving them. So I'm going to leave you guys here, and I'll catch you later.